Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 205. For those of you who listen every week, you may be wondering what happened the last few weeks, and I'm going to blame it on Mercury Retrograde. So the first week, I was actually having like a creative block, and I believe in consistency, but I also don't believe you should force things. I have my episodes lined up through the end of the year. But when I went to record that episode that was already planned, I wasn't feeling it. And I was like, I'm not going to force this. I ended up just taking a break. And then I went to record the episode, the next one, and my camera would not work correctly. So then I did something else and then it recorded. I did an entire episode, but the audio was completely staticky and messed up and we couldn't save it. So I was like, okay, apparently that podcast was not supposed to be released. So here we go again. We are trying again. So it's good to be back. And I decided to actually release this a little bit early as a bit of a surprise during Labor Day weekend for those of you who are a little bit like me and you get inspired on these long holiday weekends and want to do a little bit of business work. Now, if you have good boundaries and you work just like Monday through Friday and you are taking off, great. This will be here when you are ready. But if during those quieter weekends, you have these like flashes of brilliance and moments where you really like to dig in, especially with your strategy and your planning, I wanted you to go ahead and have this available to you. So this is technically the episode scheduled for Tuesday after Labor Day, but I'm releasing it a little bit early. Okay, so today is all about auditing your business strategy. So if you are not making as much money as you would like, or you are doing really well and now you're not seeing the same results, you're not getting the same sales, if you have hit a plateau and you just can't break through to the next level, we're going to figure out what the problem is today. So I've been using this strategy, this audit concept for many, many years. And if you've ever heard me talk about Growth Accelerator or my masterminds where we're working on business development, marketing, sales, this is what we go through. This is what we work on. And it's what I come back to time and time again. When I took my health sabbatical and slowly came back and was slowly putting things out there, this was what I was using. I still use it. I use it all the time. And here's why. One, we get way too close to our businesses and we can't see clearly. I mean, we just get blocked. We have those moments like I was talking about with the podcast where we have these creative blocks and we just can't see the forest for the trees. And we just get so emotionally attached. So when you use something that is very objective and you're just filling it out, and then you can step back and look at it, you're like, oh, I see where perhaps the problem is. And the other part of that is businesses are always evolving and changing. I don't care if you have only been in business for 6 months or you have been in business for 60 years. You change. Your clients change. The political climate changes. The economic environment changes. Things are always changing. And so what was working may no longer work. And this audit is something that you can use from here on out to constantly be able to just put your finger on what exactly you need to test and tweak next. This is not a formula. This is not rocket science, but it will help you recognize where you can focus your efforts. Because I think when things are not working well in our businesses, or maybe they're working really well, maybe you have more work than you know what to do with, and you are tired and exhausted. And it's not just a matter of having the right team in place, because it may be that you've got too many offers. It may be that you don't have good systems with all of the million offers and all of the customization, that it's taking you and your team a lot of time to actually implement and service. So today's audit, to be clear, is not about operations. It is not about team issues. It's not about systems, procedures. It's not about any of that. But this absolutely can impact those things. Okay, so we're talking about growth. We're talking about revenue, and we are talking about marketing and sales. Okay, so let's dig in. First and foremost, we actually have a download today. We have some free worksheets. So to get these, if you are watching on YouTube, it's going to be in the description. If you are listening on a podcast app, it will be in the show notes. But I'll also just go ahead and tell you what it is in case you don't want to go find that. All you're going to do is go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/audit. heatherjoyhubbard.com/audit. And that will get you the worksheets. And you go through each section, and there are questions. And there is a scale of 1 to 5. And so you'll review the question, and you're not going to overthink it. You're not going to ask a million questions related to it. You're just going to go with your gut reaction. And I even have a 1 means no, a 5 means yes. I don't have a description for 1 through 5. I don't have maybe or kind of as a 3. And if you read the question and you're like, well, I don't know if it's yes or no, it's complicated. Okay, my perfectionist high achievers, I love you. And that is not going to help you. It's not. It's not going to help you increase your revenue. This is, I know it's a scale of 1 to 5. And so it may seem like it's being graded. I specifically decided not to give out grades for the scores, because it's not about that. You are not grading this against anyone else. You are grading it against yourself. And you don't have to analyze the question in a way where you're like, I need this to make perfect sense. Just kind of go with the flow. This is called hustle and flow, right? So we're hustling, but we're also going to stay in a place of flow. I mean, I'm joking, but my goodness, so many of us tend to overanalyze and overthink things, and we just make life and business so much harder than it needs to be. So we're just going to grab a cup of coffee or tea or wine, and we're just going to go through this based on our gut reaction. Okay, so with that said, there are 6 sections, and each section relates to something very specific. I did not in the worksheet itself say what it related to, mostly because I didn't want you to get distracted. But I will go ahead and tell you what they are in the podcast. So if you're listening on the podcast and you do the worksheet, then you can always come back, okay? I'm not trying to hide anything from you. I just don't want you to get distracted or overcomplicate it. Okay. So the first section relates to your offers, your services, and your clients. The second section relates to you, your brand. Most people who listen to me and work with me are professional service providers. So even though you're an entrepreneur, even though you are a brand, it tends to be you and not something that's bigger than you. So for example, if you are selling retail, if you are selling an actual product or something that you're going to ship, hold in your hands and buy, it may look a little bit different, especially if it has nothing to do with you. Sarah Blakely, she just launched Sneaks, which is, she previously had Spanx and then she sold that company. So Sneaks and Spanx, definitely Sarah is related to it, but a lot of people know those brands completely outside of Sarah. And so that's going to be very different, right? Like, so in that sense, you're going to have a true brand identity related to the product. If you are a service provider, especially if you are on your own or there's only a few of you, perhaps in a services firm, you're generally still pitching and selling your own services. And that's why when we are focused on you as the individual and the brand, that's what this is talking about. If you are a service provider in a much larger firm, that much larger practice will have its own brand. So in section 2, I am talking about your personal brand. But if you are a service provider, that's the same thing. That is also the business brand. It is you. So that's what section 2 is all about. It is about you. It is about what makes you unique, what makes you stand out, and how you show up in your branding. Section number 3. This is all about your messaging. So this is how you show up in the world. This is how you introduce yourself. It is how you show up on social media. It is your website. And words matter. You don't necessarily have to have a copywriter to do this. In fact, if you hire a copywriter, but you don't know the messaging yourself, it doesn't matter how amazing they are. It's not going to convert and land because no one knows you better than you, and no one knows your client and your services better than you. So you really have to take ownership and responsibility for this, even if you are hiring it out. Similar to the brand that we talked about in section 2. You can hire the best designer to create the best logo and the best colors. But if they're not actually aligned with your personality, it's just what you want, it may not resonate the same way. But more importantly, if you're not giving them direction as to what your brand stands for, then they're going to be creating and developing a brand for you. And that is not going to be as effective. So again, it's totally cool. And I strongly encourage you hiring out these things if you are not an expert or you have the money, right? Like when you're first starting out, you don't always need these things in the sense that like you don't necessarily need to invest in an amazing website. You don't necessarily need to invest in a copywriter or a designer. You may be able to get away with things that you do on your own. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we are scrappy in the beginning, but knowing what you can do and you can't do, knowing where your strengths are, but there will be a point in your business, and you may already be there, where you are going to hire it out. And look, I have done this as well. When you are starting out, like you don't know what you don't know. It's so easy to go hire these experts who do amazing things, but you're hoping that they are going to tell you what the answer is. You are hoping that they are going to direct and guide you, and you're hoping that in some ways they're going to like save you, right? So it's like, oh, well, if I have this, then suddenly I'll have clients come to my website and it will convert. You have to actually take charge and really drive the direction in order for those people to be able to do their job well. You are putting way too much pressure on them, and you are giving them too much control over your business when you're expecting them to do it for you without having the vision and the strategy that you are conveying to them. Ask me how I know. I mean, some of these things, right, like I just know through my experience. And then some of this I learned the hard way and really don't want you to have to. Okay, section 3, it's all about the messaging. Because if you are not showing up in a way that people are interested in you and fully believe that you know them better than anyone else. And if they hire you or work with you, you are going to be able to help them in a way that your competitors cannot. If that's not conveyed in the messaging, frankly, they're probably not even going to scroll to even read what you've got going on. Everything is so noisy, and we have been trained, our brains, like we just don't pay attention to things anymore. So really being able to be concise, being able to hone in the message, being able to really stand out is going to require some courage, number one. But two, it's going to require you to get feedback, step away, and see how others perceive your work and not be too wed to it. Okay, let's move to section 4. And this is all about marketing. I see so many people get tripped up in this section. Either they're not doing much marketing at all, or they're doing way too much marketing and it is not connected or complementary. Like they don't actually know what's working. So this is the concept of like, you just throw spaghetti at the wall and you see what works, but then you don't ever really know what works. Also, I think, again, especially when you're starting out, it can be so easy to do all the things, to hire all the people, to take all the courses, because you're not really sure what one thing will work for you. And there are so many amazing people out there that have amazing services and they're really good at what they do. And then you hire them thinking, oh, this is the thing. This will save me. And it doesn't actually pay off, either because the other parts, the other sections aren't established, or it was never really part of the marketing plan. You just went after something. Again, I'm not judging or shaming. I have been there. I have done that. So you might think, I've got to be on LinkedIn, and I've got to be on Instagram, and I've got to be on Facebook, and I've got to be on TikTok, and I've got to have a blog, and I have to have a newsletter, and I have to have a podcast, and I have to do video. I have to do workshops, and I have to do webinars, and I have to go to events, and I have to network, and I have to, there's so many things, and I have to run ads. I've got to do Google ads, and I have to do Facebook ads, and I have to do SEO for my website. I'm still thinking. I know there's so much more. Hold on. And what else? Oh, and I need to do publicity, and I need to do media, and I need to be speaking, and I need to write a book, right? Like we go through all of these things that we need to be doing. And so you might do a little bit here and there, and it doesn't really pay off because you are pulled in a million different directions. And here's the kicker. There's no thread. You don't actually know how someone's going to hire you. You don't know if something's working or not. And that's where you really have to hone in what you're going to do for marketing. Have a clear path where the marketing will lead to a sell. Marketing without a sales plan, oh my goodness. That is just, you are wasting so much time and energy and effort. And I want you to stop doing that because this is part of what's draining you. Some of you are listening, you're like, I know I should be doing all those things, but I'm not doing any of them because one, I feel so overwhelmed. And two, I don't even know which one of those I should be doing or how many I should be doing. And three, I'm so focused on my work and just delivering to my clients that I don't have time for any of that. Okay. This is where you're really going to be able to figure out whether or not your marketing is paying off, or maybe you're not doing any marketing at all and you need to be. Because a lot of times when people are like, I'm so busy with the work that I'm not marketing, then I'm like, oh, then you don't have a problem, right? Because you've got all the money you want. Well, no, because perhaps my rate's not high enough. Or even though I'm doing a lot of work, I can't charge for all of it. And so it's like I'm still not making as much money as I want to, even though I'm working all the time. And sometimes that is a result of, like I said, the other things not being set up. So if you don't have a few offers that are very clear, if you had it more systematized and you really spent more time on the marketing and the strategy as a whole, it would allow you to charge higher rates, and it would allow the work to be less because it's more systematized and isn't actually taking up as much time. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So then we move to section 5, which is sales. Okay. You have to have a sales strategy. So many people have a marketing strategy, or they're doing marketing, but don't actually know how that's going to result in a sale. It's more of a hope, more of a wish. It's like, if I'm just out there, if there is brand awareness, surely that will be enough. Maybe it will. And if you're marketing and it's leading to all the work you want and all the money you want, it's not a problem. But if sales is part of the problem, it's probably because you don't have a sales plan. And most people do not have a sales plan because they don't like sales. They think it's icky. They don't want to impose upon someone. But here's the thing. You are in business, and businesses rely upon sales. If you are not making sales, you are not a business. You are not in business. You are a nonprofit. You are a hobbyist. You're a business owner. Even if you are a professional and you're like, I'm not actually a business owner, Heather, I'm an employee, or I'm a partner in a service firm. The way you make your money, though, is based on the money that you bring in the door, which means you are in sales and you are a business owner, even if not legally a business owner. And so I think this is an area that a lot of people just avoid. They bury their head in the sands and they're like, if I do enough marketing and if I just do a good enough job, then that will be enough. And I hate to break it to you, but that is not enough. It is not enough. And you absolutely can sell your services with confidence, with excitement, and without being a douchebag. That was the word that came because we all know that person and we don't want to be that person. And so don't be that person. That's often what I like to say. Then just don't be that person. But there are plenty, we buy from people every day that we love because they are not being a bro. They're not being icky. And so learning how to come up with a sales strategy that's going to work for you is important. And it's not just important, it is vital because, again, you are a business owner. And you are a business owner because you sell things, which means you are in the sales business. You are a salesperson. And so it's part of it. It's one of the skills that you may need to develop if you don't like that specific part. And then the very last section, it's your plan. Now, here's what's interesting. You might be like, well, shouldn't you have a plan first and foremost before you do everything else? I personally do not think you should have a plan if you don't yet have the fundamentals set up. And this is the case, again, whether you are just starting your business or you're in your 60th year of business. You don't come up with your strategic plan until you have all of this first. Now, other people may disagree and say that you create those other things based on your strategic plan. But again, we are not Fortune 500 companies here. And most people I work with are professionals. So you probably maybe you worked in a corporate environment or you worked for a large firm. And so that's the context in which you are running your own business. We are not those kinds of businesses. It's important that we bring that knowledge with us, but we are not confined by those concepts because it actually will harm us. The great news is we are in control. It's part of why we started our businesses. We wanted freedom, we wanted autonomy, and we have it. So that means that we have to set the foundation before we set the plan. You do need a vision. Absolutely, you need vision. But if you just have vision and then you have a plan, but you don't have this other stuff, you might have the wrong plan. Like you might be focused on the wrong things. In my mind, you work backwards. So you start with, okay, what am I offering? And who am I offering it to? What makes me unique? What is my brand? How am I going to differentiate myself when offering these services to my clients? What is the language I am using that is going to make them realize that I am the one? What is my marketing plan? What is my sales plan? And how does it all connect? Like, what is the through line? What is the journey? Once I know all of that, then I can say, okay, well, what am I doing for the next 6 months? And it is all set up. It is all crystal clear. And then I am just executing. And then at the end of those 6 months, I can then pivot if I need to, because I'm going to measure, I'm going to review, and I know what to do next. But I'm also going to come back to the audit. I'm always going to come back to the audit. I'm not just going to come up with the next plan, because some things will work and some things won't. We want guarantees in business. Those don't exist. And you have to test, but you have to test something long enough to know whether or not it's working. And you have to be focused enough that it's clear whether that thing worked, as opposed to, well, I tried it once or twice and it didn't work. You got to keep doing it over and over again to refine it and make sure that that is working or it isn't working. So then you go back to the audit to figure out, okay, what do I need to focus on next? And you do this like anytime you have a new offer. So I hope that concept helps you see the bigger picture of how it is all intertwined. These are often standalone things where we will go out and hire different people. But if we don't have a cohesive strategy, it's still not going to work because you have one thing without the rest. All you have to do is go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/audit. You can just download it to your computer. You can print it out like I did. And then you literally are going to read the question 1 to 5, yes or no. Each section, you're going to total up your score. At the end, you're going to have 6 sections and you're going to have your score. So you're going to see where you're doing well and where you're not. It could be that like a few areas are really dialed in and the others are not. And then you're going to be like, oh, that's where I need to focus. And so one thing that you can do if you feel overwhelmed, because a lot of people will do this and be like, oh my gosh, I have been doing it all wrong the whole time. I've got to burn the whole business down and start over. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. If those are the results you get, you are fine. No, you don't. In fact, you can keep doing what you're doing because like you don't have to have this like crisis moment. What you can do is you can do a section at a time. So you can say, all right, for the first month, I am going to really focus on auditing and editing and making changes to section 1. Then the next month you can say, all right, now I'm focused on section 2 because they truly do build. I would not change the order, right? If you need to kind of work on all of it, go in order. Now, as you go through it, things may change. You might be like, oh, well, that impacts that. Yes. But this is the right order, I promise you. So you're going to go month by month. There's 6 sections. So in 6 months, you will then be ready for a 6-month plan. And so that'll take a year. And yes. I mean, everyone wants things fixed, before a year. It's kind of like the concept of a tree. you wish you would have planned it 10 years ago, but the next best day is today. So go ahead and get started. And then depending on where you are in your business, there only may be a few sections where you need to tweak it, so it won't take as long. And then the other option is to just hire me. Work with me. That's what Growth Accelerator is all about. We do it in 6 weeks. It goes with the sections, and it is limited to 8 people, which allows me to really dig in and help you craft what is going to be best for you. The other part of, things being a little too close is we can't always see things, and we need that strategic feedback from a business strategist. And then other times, maybe that's just not your strength. That's not your expertise. Strategy in business, marketing, sales, all those things, it just may not be your expertise. So being able to come in and work with someone on all of it so that you can then go do the individual pieces by yourself or hire that out, you are set and ready to go. So that is absolutely going to fast track you because, again, we do that over a 6-week period. And during that, in week 6, we come up with your 6-month plan. So that's going to get you results much, much faster. And you're probably going to feel more confident knowing that I have helped you actually craft the strategy. Okay, that's it. That's your business audit. So if you want to go audit it this weekend over Labor Day, do that. And maybe you're listening years from now. Maybe it's Christmas. Maybe it's April. Maybe it's July. This is always going to work. It's going to work in 60 years. There may be a new medium out that we don't even know about. It's still going to work. It's just going to let you ask the questions to figure out where you need to focus next. But if you want to join Growth Accelerator, just go to heatherjoyhubbard.com/Growth Accelerator. And in the download, I even have the program dates for 2024 and 2025. So if you want to plan ahead, maybe you don't want to start this fall, but you want to go ahead and build it into your plan for next year. The dates are in there and the information on how to sign up is in there. So go audit your business, go make the tweaks that you need to, and let me know how it goes because I am confident that if you do this, it's going to increase your revenue and help you get more clients and stop throwing spaghetti against the wall. All right. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app, you can watch the video and join in the after-show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.